So welcome everybody to this morning's Family Caregiver webinar in our ElderHelp series. Today's topic will be on coping with loss and grief, and I am very introduce our speaker, but I'm going to just cover a couple of things before I do that. My name is Carrie McClellan. I'm the Outreach Manager for ElderHelp, and I always have the pleasure of introducing speakers and different topics for family caregivers at any level. So whether you're just starting to care for an older adult in your life, or maybe you are providing day-to-day care, we could all benefit from learning new information and finding out what might be available in our community for resources. So I look forward to sharing today's topic with you. Before we move on, I just want to pause for a moment and just let you know that we are wishing you and your families all the best during these uncertain times. It's not a surprise for anybody. We are all managing very differently than we normally do, and you know, it's a time to be thankful for who we have in our lives, but also to remember those who aren't in our lives as well. And during the current pandemic is no different for that. ElderHelp's mission is to provide personalized services and information to help seniors remain independent and live with dignity in their own homes. So that's something that we really strive to do through all of the various programs that we offer. This just gives an overview of our core services through ElderHelp. So we provide information and referral services to connect people to resources in the community. That could be seniors or family members who are calling on behalf of a loved one. We offer many different check-in calls, especially during this time, but our Are You Okay calls are very helpful to check in and make sure that our older adults are doing okay. Our family caregiver support is where these webinars come through. So on a monthly basis, we offer different topics. If you would like to see what other topics we've covered in the past, that can be found on our website and our library of webinars on our family caregiver page. So please check that out. Our Seniors A Go-Go program offers rides to different places. Right now we are focusing on medical appointments. Our care coordination program connects seniors with social workers, but also volunteers to help with a number of different things. And we have housing services, which covers a variety of resources and support for individuals in our community looking for affordable housing or supporting residential communities. So we have quite an array of services. During the current pandemic, we are focusing on essential services for our clients. We're wanting to limit in-person contact and making sure that those essential needs are being met. So we do that through delivering food and essential items from our pantry, rides again to medical appointments, and of course a variety of check-in calls that we're doing. We have continued to offer our family caregiver webinars throughout the pandemic. We just feel that educating our family members who are caring for loved ones is important now more than ever, so that we can make sure we are able to help connect with other resources that might be valuable. So without further ado, I'm very excited to introduce one of my colleagues at ElderHelp, Danielle Little, and she will be the speaker for today's topic. So I'm going to go ahead and give her the reins and let her take it away.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Danielle Little. I am an employee over at ElderHelp of San Diego. So I have a bachelor's degree in social work from San Diego State University. I am at ElderHelp. I work within our housing department. So I do residential services over at a low-income building downtown. It houses 130 low-income seniors. A lot of them are experiencing substance abuse issues, mental health issues, and recently homeless. So there's a lot to manage down there. And as well, before we go into a little bit more about myself, let's move to the next slide. So I also am a volunteer at Trauma Intervention Programs, or TIP. So before I go into detail about that program, I want to let you know that this topic might be a little bit hard to listen to, so feel free to take a step back, turn off your camera, take a moment to yourself, but I encourage you to stay with us throughout the presentation. So at TIP, it is a nonprofit that's partnered with law enforcement, fire department, and hospital staff. I am dispatched to trauma scenes, including car accidents, natural deaths, suicides, homicides, and house fires. I go into homes immediately following a death or another traumatic event. I am there to guide them through the stages of grief and to be a liaison between law enforcement and the family. I explain to the family everything that is going on during investigations, as well as explaining the death process. There is a lot more that goes into these trauma calls that I don't want to burden you with. So if you want to know more, please reach out to me. This presentation, I'm going to talk about loss and grief and what that might look for us and those around us. So types of loss. The definition of loss is going to be different for all of us. It could be a loss of a friendship, a loss of a home, death of a friend or loved one, and death of a pet. And there's many other types of loss as well. You probably have noticed these stages of grief. We hear them all over. And I want to mention that they don't always go in order. So there is denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. But a lot of them are all over the place. It could be the minute something happens, or it could be a week later, a month later, even years later that these stages will appear. So I want to mention that everyone grieves differently at different times in different ways. Most of the time, our loved ones will grieve differently than us and how we perceive them to react to these situations. Some are quiet, some never cry, some cry, and then some might even scream or yell. It's all different between us. The common misconception is if you don't cry, you aren't feeling the loss or the loss doesn't mean anything. This is 100% incorrect. We process and handle loss and grief in different ways between all of us. One of the stages I want to mention and point out is bargaining. This is the stage that I most commonly find people in, trying to find a way of, healing their own trauma. So a lot of them are saying, if I were to have called earlier, maybe their loved one would have been here. If I hadn't gone to the store, maybe they would still be here. But no matter how many ways we try to solve what has just happened, there is no way of knowing if it would have made a difference or a different outcome. So just to remember that no matter how many times we try to think of a different outcome, we don't know if that's going to change. We'll move on. So there's different types of grief. Some of them might seem like you've heard of these, or some of them might be new to you. So I'll go over a couple. One is going to be anticipatory grief. So this is common with people who are diagnosed with cancer. The minute you accept that your loved one is going to pass, you begin to grieve. And with this example, you might have experienced the majority of your grieving process before your loved one has actually died. And when they do end up dying, you might not show any of your grief in that moment because you have already gone through the process. And the next one is delayed grief. That is you experience grief over long after your loved one has died. Feelings are often suppressed and appear much later on in life. Complicated and chronic are debilitating and long-lasting. They are impairing the ability of daily activities as well. And then disenfranchised is the grieving process that, or the type of grief, sorry, that a loss, that a culture or a society or support group makes us feel like the loss is insignificant or invalidated. This could be in result to death by suicide, an overdose, drunk driving, or HIV, but this can also be in regards to an ex-spouse, miscarriage, or a loss of a pet. And then the last one is cumulative. So this is experiencing a second loss while still grieving from the first loss. And there's many more types of grief as well. So these are some do's and don'ts when someone is grieving. So some things that we can offer are being there for somebody when they are grieving, just sitting with them and listening. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to do anything. You just be there. And if they are rambling things throughout their minds, making lists of things, all you can do is just write it down. You can just be there to write it down for them. Then they won't have to think about it later. It's there. Some things we come across are we don't have the words. So if you don't have the words, just say, I don't know what to say. I am so sorry. You don't have to go into a big explanation. Just say, I'm so sorry. And to always remember that everyone grieves differently. Some statements that I come across that are on the don't column. So don't make promises you can't keep. You can change this into I will try, I will ask somebody, but don't make promises you can't come through. And the biggest question that most people ask when somebody is grieving is, how are you doing? And the way that we can change that is, how was today? Because we don't know how they're doing. Overall, it's probably pretty bad. But today might be a good day. And if they say something positive, you hold on to that. And the next one, I understand what you're going through. This is a really hard one to hear if you are grieving, because most likely you don't know what they're going through. You're not them, so you don't know. And the way we can change that is, I can't imagine what you're going through. This must be really, really hard. I can't imagine. And the next one, I lost my mom too, or some other way of saying, your loss is the same as my loss and we're equal. And that can also be really hard to hear. So another way of changing that is, I have experienced a loss similar, but I still can't imagine what you're going through. And the last one, you'll move on or you'll get over this. And we do not know if they're going to move on or get over this. So changing that to take this one day at a time, 1 hour at a time, whatever it needs to be, but just take it slow. Let me move on to the next one. So I wanted to mention how grief affects us and in our lives. So these are some signs of how our grief can turn into depression. So, like I've said before, all of our grief is different. We all experience it differently. What we need to look for is when grief turns into depression, when we are giving excuses for not seeing friends and family, when we are pressing the ignore button on incoming phone calls, when we stop doing our daily activities or become irritable at work and with family. These are some signs that we are no longer grieving and we are moving into depression. This is when we should seek help, someone to talk to. And I can't stress this enough, having someone to talk to that is going to be unbiased and outside of your circle is extremely beneficial to your healing process. So here are some resources. There are many more, but these are the top ones that I have. And next I will have my contact information. So if you have any questions, feel free to email me or give me a call. If you have any clarifications on something, or even if you just want to talk through an experience that you've had, I'm available for that as well. And this is my contact information. I know this is a lot to handle sometimes, so take a deep breath. And I want to thank you all for being here and, going through this process with me as well. And thank you to Carrie for inviting me to be here today. So I'll pass it back over to you.
Well, thank you so much, Danielle. And just listening to the tips that you share, the different processes, I'm walking through things in my life too, and I think that we can all connect with those, but I appreciate the way that you help us to understand how to communicate with somebody, because sometimes that's the biggest challenge. I always want to start by saying something, and it's probably just because I'm uncomfortable in the situation, I think it might be what they want to hear, but your suggestions are very helpful. I definitely appreciate all of that. Um, it is a heavy topic. I think that there's not a real easy way to lighten that up, but it is real, and we all experience things in different ways. So thank you for your time and sharing your expertise today. I know I appreciate that. I hope others do as well. Um, if anybody has any questions, if you want to ask something or want to know more about a resource, please feel free to use the raising of your hand feature, and you can type that in now, and we can help to answer that. So if you feel comfortable doing so and would like to ask a question to Danielle or myself, please do so, and we'll be happy to answer that right now. Otherwise, I can certainly share this presentation with you afterwards so that you can have Danielle's contact information if you'd prefer to reach out to her separately. And I appreciate you sharing that, Danielle.
Yeah.
I know that could be helpful too.
Glad to do so.
All right, if anybody has any questions, please submit them, and we'll be happy to answer. While I wait to see if anybody does, I'm just going to move through a couple. Oh, good, we have a hand. Hold on. I don't see it. Okay. Well, if it comes back, but I did want to let everybody know we do have another webinar coming up in our Family Caregiver series. So December 10th, we will be partnering with Alzheimer's San Diego again, as we've done throughout the year. So we will have Amy Abrams talking about managing resistance. So that will be, I'm sure, a very good topic with a lot of information that will be helpful. And I'll send out all of the information for that, so be on the lookout. And again, if you have any general questions or would like to know about resources, please feel free to contact ElderHelp. Our main phone number is a great resource, or our website has a lot of good information about the different programs that we offer. You could also send in an inquiry through our website, so feel free to use that. If you would like to be notified about all of our upcoming family caregiver webinars, please email me directly and let me know, and I'd be happy to add you to the list so that you automatically get that information. And then, of course, our website again has more details. All right, and we do have a question that has come in, Danielle. How do I help someone who has Alzheimer's cope with grief when the loss is new, depending on the day?
That's a difficult one. I've gone on a couple calls with Alzheimer's, and really the main thing is always to keep your story the same. So I know they continue to ask you the same questions, but just keep them the same, maybe even shorter. I know it's tiring sometimes, but just to keep at it. I'm sorry.
I always hear, joining their journey. It might be the the grieving
Mhm.
process might be kind of repetitive because they
Mhm.
might not recall that event taking place. So that is
Yep.
difficult for family. Thank you for that question. Anybody else have any other follow-up questions? I don't see any coming through. So if you do, again, please feel free to reach out. I will share the recorded version of the webinar and also Danielle's information if you do have a question that you'd like to ask on a more individual basis. But otherwise, we really appreciate your time this morning. Hope the information was helpful, and please feel free to pass that along to your family members as well, or others in your life that you think could benefit. You never know. Sometimes it's just that one tip or that one understanding that will help out. So thank you again so much for being here, and we'll be in touch about upcoming webinars. But in the meantime, don't hesitate to reach out to us, and we hope you have a wonderful holiday season with your family and stay safe.